Greetings everyone, it's time for a video. Recently I did a short mini tool haul from Mr. Worker. Picked up some wrenches, and I mentioned before we're going to have more to cover, and that's what this video is about. So this is a random tool comments about these wrenches. Now what are these? I guess the most, maybe most accepted technical term is obstruction wrenches. Though they are also come under a couple of other names. They come under, they're known as half moon wrenches because they're kind of like a half moon. Let me pick one out and isolate it. Let's pick this one right here. So it's kind of like a half moon, and you'll see others that are actually more rounded. They're also referred to as starter wrenches, and I'll come back to that name in a second. So I picked these up from a variety of sources. Some are new, some are used. We've got the gamut of major German tool manufacturers, including four Stahlwilles, and Ghedora, and then a Hazet as well. So these are called obstruction wrenches primarily because they're for getting around obstructions. Gedore has a really nice picture in their catalog which kind of explains it. Let me grab kind of a version of that real quick so you can see. So here's my crappy representation of it. So basically, like, you've got some kind of enclosed space, and you're going to come in with one of these wrenches, and you're going to try to get around the bolt, and you're going to move like so. And you know, you might not be able to come in with, say, a straight wrench because it's blocked, and maybe you have to imagine there's like some kind of cover over this, so you can't really come in with a ratchet or a socket to get to it easily. Anyway, so that's kind of an example of kind of what they're for. And there's this is kind of the pattern you'll see for the German ones as well as Nepros. I think AVE had a video where he was talking about Japanese tools real quick, and it was kind of sort of a quick reveal. I'll put a link in the description below for that so you can see it. I'd already picked up a couple of these before he did that video, but I'd been eyeing these for a while, and I saw some. So I have actually opened up a bunch of these, and in fact I'm going to start going through these individually. I've not opened up the couple of the Stahlwille since I just got these in a few days ago. Anyway, without any more yapping, let's get into it. So actually, I'll go ahead and crack all these out, and I'll be right back in a second. Actually, before I go any further, these are how these come packaged. So to give you a rough idea, the Stahlwille, you get this kind of envelope with the part number and the UPC code and all that. Same for these two. These just happen to be sealed up. The Ghedora is similar. You have a except they staple it, and that's how you get them. They're loose. They do sell sets. No, actually, I take that back. They don't sell sets for these, which I'll discuss a little bit more why in a second. So hang on. All right, here they are, all out. So I mentioned before, these are also called half moon wrenches, which, like I said, you can see clearly see the pattern. You know, it's kind of like a half moon versus, say, a straight wrench, right? And then you have, they're also called starter wrenches, which is kind of a confusing thing because Stahlwille also calls these starter wrenches. And I'm not sure if that's related or, you know, they just picked that name. Maybe it's just a bit of clever marketing on their part. I can't really say. Old-timers, from what I understand, refer to these as starter wrenches because it's often where they use them, is when they're trying to get to the upper bolts and to change out a starter. And there's practically, apparently, no way you can easily get in, or even difficultly get in to get those top two bolts. So that's kind of what they're for, and why they're often referred to as starter wrenches, because that's a common use for them. I saw, to go through where I got these at, so I picked this one, and this one up from Mr. Worker. I got a very competitive price. And I got them in 11 days from Italy. They shipped them UPS Air, so I got them pretty good. This one I picked up on eBay used, and it's we'll compare this Stahlwille to these three newer ones. And then this is a Ghedora I picked up new on Amazon. The reseller who was purging their stuff because it was less than what you can get it for. And then this, it's rather perplexing and interesting Hazet. This one I picked up on eBay as well from a seller in Israel. And then what's kind of interesting about this is this actually, let me zoom in on this one real quick. I'll slide these over, and there'll be any reason why this thing is so interesting. Also, I'll see if I can focus on it, which is always problematic. It kind of looks good. So what is this? There should be something that should pop up very immediately. This, assuming you can see it. Hang on a second. All right, that's a little better. Assuming you can see it, says West Germany on there. So this was listed as an antique when I picked it up on eBay, and I would say since this is stamped as West Germany, it probably falls under that. Now, back in the day, Germany used to not be a unified country. There was this little thing called World War II where the Soviets and the Allies split apart the country, and you had East Germany, West Germany, the old Cold War thing, and then about 91, 92, 93, after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Germany reunified. Don't quote me on the date, you can look it up on Wikipedia. And I think before that, you'll often see a number of German tools will be stamped with West Germany because that's where they were made. So this is the Hazet. Their series is the 615 series. See if you can see that. Hopefully you can see it. And, you know, this is pretty much, I don't know that there's any real difference. The important point about this wrench is you actually can't get this anymore from Hazet. They have the, I'm trying to make sure you're in focus here. They have 22 and then it's a 19 on this end. And what that means is this is 19 millimeter, 22 millimeter, but if you look in Hazet's catalog nowadays, they don't sell it anymore. I think they only sell up to 19 if I remember right. So they don't have it anymore. But, you know, for a wrench that's roughly 25 years old, I would say that for an antique that you can't get anymore, it's in pretty freaking good shape, quite frankly. The only thing that's kind of an imperfection on here is there's kind of this dark spot. It looks like I'm going to change out the battery. Hang on. All right, battery changed. So as I was saying, you can see there's kind of this kind of I guess a dark spot, kind of like a band there. Only thing I've noticed, first I thought it was paint, but I've used some acetone and other stuff in there, nothing comes off. I think what it was is maybe something got caught and brushed up against it and brushed some of the finish off, or maybe it's always been that way. It was just a minor imperfection. That said, for a 25-year-old wrench, this thing is in excellent shape. I did clean a little grit and grime out of here and then a little bit in here, but that's been about it. This is the, of course, somewhat prototypical Hazet finish that you would expect. A little darker than, say, you know, this wrench here, which is a brand new Hazet. You can kind of see the difference. But, you know, nothing really different. It's certainly been used. There's been some nicks and stuff, but nothing terrible. I think for buying a wrench from Israel, used wrench from Israel, and getting it for 20 bucks, I feel pretty good about that, honestly. And he packed it quite well, and I received it in, I think, about 6 days, which is pretty good. Anyway, like I said, you can't get this anymore, but Hazet still sells these wrenches. They just don't sell this size. And just to give you a quick rundown, you got chrome, vanadium, 615, Hazet, so on. Flip it over, of course, you see the same thing. One thing you might be able to tell is this is not strike. The strike for this, I guess, emblem or marking is not quite straight. It's very difficult to tell, but if you notice here, it's kind of higher up and lower there, and then it's kind of down here. So they didn't strike it straight. You can also see it on the other side. Just a minor manufacturing defect. Anyway, that's about it for that one. Let's move on to the Ghedora. Ghedora is the 304 series. Ghedora has a couple interesting points. Their finish looks very similar to the Hazet here, as you can tell. In fact, it's very difficult to tell the difference with their chrome, but that is the way it is. And they have a difference between them compared to others. The marking, as you can tell, it's indented. It's very visible, pretty easy to see. So this is a 16 millimeter and 18 millimeter, while the Hazet was a 1922. One thing that's kind of fascinating is, so you've got the Ghedora logo, you've got 304. It's hard to see with the shininess of it. And unlike the Hazet, which, to show you what I'm talking about here, if I'm going to go and flip it, I have to flip it lengthwise, and the writing still stays the same. The Ghedora is different. It, for whatever reason, they did it this way. If you flip it the other way, it ends up being upside down, which is kind of weird. So for you to do this, you actually have to go, and for this to stay correct, here's the Made in Germany, you actually have to turn it over. And that's how that works. Kind of a little difference. Not sure why they do it that way. They have the numbers stamped on both sides, but it is what it is. Nothing really special or bad about it, other than I did notice that they don't polish this. Hazet does, as you can see, but the Ghedora is not. It's all just the same basic matte chrome finish all the way around. Nothing really wrong. I did notice a little chip there. See if you can see it. I don't know if that seems to be before the chrome was applied. I don't know if you can focus in too good on that. It's hard to hold this up with zoomed in and focused tight. Mostly, you know, it's going to be the same as anything else. Looks to be pretty decent. Like I said, just a minor nicks that you would expect, I guess. I haven't really seen any that are any different than that. Moving along, going down, then we got a new Stahlwille. This is a 1517, and there is one difference which we'll cover compared to the older Stahlwille, which I'll cover in a second. And this is a new one I picked up from Mr. Worker. You know, pretty much everything's the same. Carlisle steel, made in Germany. One difference is they have, compared to the other stuff, is they have the 15 and the 17, which is inside, and I'll explain why that's different in a second. And there is a mark here. Looks to be pre-chrome. A little rougher. Some of this could be from storage. Not sure. This is a little rougher than I usually expect. Now, that said, that's kind of a nit, and honestly, it's a nitpick even for the Ghedora, and certainly I'm not going to pick on the Hazet being 25 years old, because this is exactly what I expect for them. I have noticed a couple of minor differences compared to the other, in that this kind of has a feeling of being a little boxier. You know, the Ghedora is it's kind of square and boxy, as you can see, and then the Hazet is kind of, it's thicker and heavier. I don't know if they're current ones they make are this thick or thinner. I would imagine actually they'd be more thinner, to be honest. Moving down the numbers here, we got the 14, 16. Got an overlap here with the Ghedora, but that's just the way it broke out, that if I wanted to get one, I'd have to go and find something like that. So same basic thing, you know, again, nothing really fundamentally different. Of course, you notice there, if you flip it this way, it'll be upside down, so if you want to see it, and so forth. And you know, you notice I said you got the starter 27 and the sizes and everything. Exactly what you would expect. This is the last new one. This is a 1012. Same basic stuff. Starter, you know, Stahlwille starter 27. Nothing really special in terms of anything wrong or like that. All pretty good quality. This is the used Stahlwille, which is obviously older than before. Some fundamental differences. The number is not on the inside like you would see from here, right? So notice there's where the number is. Hard to see in the light. I'm sorry about that. Here's the number on the outside. Number on the outside. So this is an 1113. If you flip it, one thing that is apparent, they don't have numbers here and here. One other interesting little note is they have this A, so I don't know if this just means it's an older one or what. But again, Stahlwille starter 27. I have noticed if you compare these, like, and that's something, these are almost the same size. So I'll kind of back up a bit. You'll be a little out of focus, but you can kind of see the profile is almost exactly the same. The only difference is the size of the rings themselves are a little different. So which is why the 1012 versus, you know, 1113. And in fact, the next two sizes up for Stahlwille, it's the same way. There's a little bit bigger size, but it's very difficult to tell. It's just a little bit longer. And then, of course, when you get bigger, it goes away. The sizes don't match. One thing I will say also about the newer versus the older is this is definitely thinner. It's going to be hard to tell in the video, but trust me, it is. Not terribly so, but it is that. I also noticed that the channel, I'd say the channel is actually a little bigger in the older one, which the new one's it's a little less deep, I guess. So these are kind of bigger, bulkier. And I say bigger and bulkier, it's just they kind of feel more square in your hand. And you can definitely see that the ring for the older is thinner versus the newer. Not by a lot, but it certainly is there. So that is kind of a rough overview of them. Before I talked about the pattern, let me zoom back out. a bit and then do some focusing here. Hopefully it'll focus. I talked about the pattern. I've seen other patterns. This is peculiar, this pattern, and let me pick this one. I think this one really shows it very well. The older Stahlwille. The pattern is kind of interesting because they have this kind of weird bent. And let me draw on some paper real quick, and then we'll talk about it some more. All right, so there's some other patterns you'll see. Snap-on has, and excuse my S, it's kind of crappy, but they have kind of an S series, and they call them obstruction wrenches. That's their technical term. While you'll see many which are listed as half moon, it's like a semicircle with a couple of rings on the end. And then I've seen some which are kind of more of like a rounded V, kind of like this, and not so much like this pattern here that all these German wrenches have. I will say that the German wrenches all have this peculiar size, and I'll try to make it clear what I mean by that. This peculiar pattern. The only others I've seen are, as I mentioned before, ABE was showing some Nepros wrenches, obstruction wrenches, and they also had this same peculiar pattern of one, kind of like this flat surface, but with these two angles. And to go more into detail about that, we've got this. So I'm going to try to show you as best as I can here. Now you can see here I've got this ruler lined up. It's straight across, and if you put the wrench on there, you can notice that, and it should be very obvious, this side is higher, and if you go along, this side's lower. All right, so what does that mean? Well, if you go and actually do your some geometry, there's a radius here, or I guess in this case maybe it's trig, I don't remember. But regardless, you've got a 90-degree angle with a fixed radius at a fixed distance. Meanwhile, this one is more like, it goes about to here. It's more like a 45-degree angle. So this is kind of like 90, and this would be, 45, and that's kind of how they're doing it. A little unusual. I'm not sure why they do that. I did some digging, did some research. I can't get an explanation as to why these things are this way. Clearly there has to be a way. All three German manufacturers wouldn't do this just because they feel like it. I mean, after all, they're in business, and I can't imagine that this doesn't cost more money to do these double bends versus, say, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's not any huge amount of money, like it's probably barely registers on them, but it is more effort. There's no doubt that it is to do it this way. And the pattern's always, the larger size is on the kind of 90-degree radius, and the smaller size is always on the 45. Now, of course, there's some crossover, like you can get a 14-17. You can see here where I've got a 16-18, and then the Stahlwille 14-16 are, in this case, you've got, this is the big one and this is the little one, so it doesn't always hold true, but that's kind of how this works. I'd be curious if anybody in the comments can provide a rationale for this. I can't think of one. I mean, you're still working around an obstruction, so it's kind of odd that you would go and have this kind of tighter bend here and then a kind of a longer, looser bend here. There's got to be a rationale for it. I just don't know what it is, and I haven't found a reason for it. Regardless, that's the way it is. Like I said, the only other ones I've seen that do this are the Nepros. And I'm imagining KTC, who makes them, Kyoto Tool Company, probably does the same thing. I haven't looked, haven't done any research. That's just an assumption on my part, but I imagine it's probably a valid assumption. Now, like I said, the Stahlwille, you can definitely see it. The smaller wrenches, it's not as obvious, I guess, but it is to me. And, if you compare to the others, it's clearly there. All of these have it. And then the Ghedora doesn't seem to have it as much. It's there, right? It's clearly there, but that reduction isn't as significant. It's actually probably not as much, but it is in there. And then, of course, the Hazet has it as well. It's, especially in this big wrench, it's very apparent that it's there. Again, I don't really have any information on why it's that way, but it is. So, and it's curious. Like I said, there's got to be a reason for it. Now, other things worthy of note. Let's see, to use Clive phrase, the Stahlwille one, they're look very similar than their other wrenches. Like you can tell, you've got the same basic size channel. They now put the numbers inside, so as compared to the old one where they had the number on the outside. And you know, basically like their other wrenches. One other point of interest is these are technically longer wrenches, because if you measure them across, I guess you would say, not really their circumference, but against the full length, it's going to be, if you stretch it out straight, it would be longer. But since you're going around an obstruction, it's technically going to end up being roughly the same length. Now this is a 14-15, so this isn't a straight comparison. This is a 14-16, but you can see roughly where the socket, or I'm sorry, the box ends versus the open ends are roughly the same size. So you're going to get kind of the same amount of torque for this style of wrench, but you're going around. If you compare, and the other point, of course, comparison is the finish is the same. There's not any difference, practically speaking. The Hazet, I think I'd said this before, it's a little more shiny. This is an older one, which I don't know, you know, the chroming may have changed, how they use it, how they applied it. Could have worn off some over the years, don't know. But that's what it is. It's a little different, but not terribly so. And I even said that, you know, pointed out a bit ago that the Ghedora and the Hazet seem to be very similar in their finish. So that's pretty much it for, I think, all the things I can talk about with these. They're fascinating wrenches. I've seen them for a while. And, you know, part of my motivation for even getting these is I saw a good deal on eBay and for this one. And then I saw this one at the same time, and I picked them up, and I said, let me go and get some set. Or not get a set, but fill out the range. And I debated buying the Gedore since it overlaps. And this is a 16-18 and it overlaps the 14-16, but it's okay. I'm not too worried about it. So I cover all the way from 10 up to 19 with these. And then the Hazet lets me jump up to 22. Whether or not I actually end up using them, I don't know. I suspect I will, because there's been times where in the past I've struggled even getting a socket or a ratchet to pick up a bolt, especially when you're working around engine stuff. That's the way it ends up. So, now that said, would I advise for people to pick these up? Probably not. I only picked them up kind of more on a whim, and a pricey whim at that. These are not cheap at all. Compared to regular wrenches, they are anywhere from 50 to 100% more. That said, picking the used ones up along with the ones I got from Mr. Worker, the price increase from going, buying in Europe versus buying in America is pretty significant. That said, you can still, if you hunt, you can get good deals, and if you're willing to go and buy from Mr. Worker like I have, and I've not had any trouble, that's me. Other people I know have had problems, but like I said, I think everybody's going through fits. I can't get certain Hazet things that I've been trying to get for probably 6 months now. They're either out of stock or, in the case of the company I ordered from, they didn't even respond to my order and just canceled it. And then I had to actually file a claim through PayPal to get my money back. Kind of depressing, but that's the way it is. So all in all, I think that's about it. As I said before, I wouldn't think you should buy these unless you really need them. They're nice to have. I'm glad to have them, and I will use them. I'm sure it just won't be very often. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, thanks for watching.